Alright, coming up next on Legends Showdown, a singles matchup. Definitely worth the price of admission. Titus O'Neil getting all set to lock it up with the Unholy Trinity's Big Bob Duncum. Actually, it's kind of the Unholy Trinity -1 these days.
Ladies and gentlemen, this next match, one fall, a 10-minute time limit. Approaching the ring from Live Oak, Florida, weighing in at 270 pounds, Titus O'Neil.
Been a long time since we've seen Titus O'Neil in an RWL ring. It's nice to have him back. Tonight it's a one-on-one against Big Bob Duncum. What do you like, Reggie? Actually, I'm kind of partial to Titus O'Neil. I think he's capable of picking up a win over Big Bob Duncum. Unholy Trinity seems to be having a bit of an unlucky streak these days, aren't they? I don't say it's the only edge Titus O'Neil's got, but any edge is a good edge. Well, yes, that's true, but at the same time, he loses that edge by virtue of the fact that the Unholy Trinity likes to cheat. And with Dutch Mantell at ringside, you know what you can expect.
His opponent, accompanied by Dirty Dutch Mantell from Austin, Texas, weighing 326 pounds, Big Bob Duncum.
Well, at least Bob Duncum and Dutch Mantell are here. I'm sure primetime Bobby Mills is watching comfortably from his hospital bed. Oh well, these things happen. But I'm sure there's going to be more tension between the Unholy Trinity and MJ Ferrantino. Of course there's going to be. Seems to me MJ Ferrantino's a very vindictive young fella. Yeah, Ferrantino don't get mad, he gets even. And you know what? When you got two stubborn minds, like MJ Ferrantino and too short Popeye Scott Bell, it's always going to end up in conflict. It's always going to end up in sparks. As well, returning our attention to this match, Denny, I believe that if Titus O'Neil can circumvent the cheating of Big Bob Duncum and Dirty Dutch Mantell, he's certainly got an opportunity to win this match. Yeah, well, remains to be seen. Well, just the same, I'm holding out hope for Titus O'Neil. I don't think much of Bob Duncum. I think he's an uneducated hillbilly. If that's your idea of being antagonistic, I like it. All right, Tom Canamora rings the bell. Here we go. Titus O'Neil, quickly countered by Bob Duncum. Duncum gets a hold of Titus, whips him into the corner. He rebounds out. Quick counter from Titus O'Neil. Bob Duncum catches a kick to the back. Titus O'Neil opening up a can of whip-ass early here. Quick counter from Bob Duncum. Another counter from Titus O'Neil and a quick one-arm takedown from Titus. Whoa. Look at this. Opens up with a series of kicks on Bob Duncum. Drags him towards center ring. Goes right back to work on the arms. Dutch Mantell already doesn't like what he sees. Getting into it with Titus O'Neil already. Bobby Duncum. A little bit slow getting up. Gets a hold of Titus O'Neil. Takes him from behind. Here we go. Boom. Back suplex. Bob Duncum. Countered by Titus O'Neil with a dragon screw. A stomp to the back. Titus O'Neil countered quickly by Big Bob Duncum. Immediately goes back to work with a series of shots for Bob. Whoa! A knee shot that took Duncum down quick and a cover. 1, 2. Look at Dutch Mantell. He's absolutely frantic. Titus O'Neil really going to work here on Big Bob Duncum. Duncum up to one knee. Counters with a couple of shots, backs off Titus O'Neil, gets a hold of him, whips him to the far corner, a clothesline, takes Titus down. Bob Duncum with a right into a backbreaker. And now Bob Duncum takes himself all the way up to the top turnbuckle. Here we go, the elbow drop, finds the mark. Here's the cover and the hook of the leg, but not even a one. Wow, Titus O'Neil kicking out of the pin real quick. Titus counters Bob Duncum, backs him off. Duncum counters with a kick. Into a Lutez press. A bunch of hard right hands right to the face. Bob Duncum switching things around, turning the tables on Titus O'Neil. Now a rear chin lock. Applied by Bob Duncum. Titus O'Neil trying to fight his way loose, and he ain't having no good luck. Gets back up on his feet. Two little elbows, and he's loose again. Up over the shoulder. Bob Duncum about to go for a ride. Oh, man. Power bomb to the floor. Titus O'Neil quickly stopped by Bob Duncum. There's a dragon screw Dutch Mantell. Itching to get involved. Look at him. Titus O'Neil with another dragon screw on Bob Duncum. Duncum counters with a shot to the midsection. Everybody's back in the ring again. Duncum whips Titus to the ropes. Big flash. Nothing happens. A quick counter from Titus O'Neil into a DDT on Bob Duncum. Titus O'Neil turning things around for himself pretty quick here. Here's another cover. One. Gotta give it to Titus O'Neil. He's definitely trying. Hard kick to the back. Bob Duncum back up on his feet. Another kick from Titus. Duncum whipped to the corner. A clothesline to the back. Duncum falls. Look at this. Rear chin lock applied by Titus O'Neil on Big Bob Duncum. Duncum finds his way out. Titus right back on him. Whips him back into the corner again. Duncum counters with an elbow. Fireman's carry from Titus O'Neil. Titus hangs Duncum up off the top rope. Gives it a good yank, and down goes Bob Duncum. Bobby Duncum suddenly finding himself in a little bit of trouble here. Titus O'Neil rounds him up. Front cradle. And nails Bob Duncum with a rib breaker and a fall-away slam. Dutch Mantell already fiddling with the turnbuckle in the corner. Titus O'Neil warming up the bus here. Whoa! What a powerbomb. Here's a... Oh, look at this. There was going to be a pin, but Dutch Mantell spoiled everything. Titus O'Neil countered by Bob Duncum. Another dragon screw. Down goes Titus O'Neil. Bob Duncum trying to rally the fans here. Nobody likes him. A splash. O'Neil comes out of the corner. Bob Duncum nails him with a DDT. Look at this. Dutch Mantell brings in a chair. Here's a cover. 1, 2. Well, looks like Duncum might use that chair after all. Only a 2 count. Titus O'Neil slow getting back up here. Bobby Duncum rounds him up over the shoulders. There's a Michinoku driver. There's a cover. 1, 2, 3. Well, Bob Duncum wrapping this one up pretty quick with Titus O'Neil.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time, 5 minutes, 45 seconds. Your winner, Big Bob Duncum.
Well, your winner by pinfall, Big Bob Duncum. With a little help from his friends, of course. Yeah, well, that couldn't be helped. I gotta give full marks to Titus O'Neil, though. He put in a great effort. If it weren't for the fact that Dutch Mantell was at ringside and that Big Bob Duncum was playing dirty, things might have gone different. Yes, well, when you break it down, Titus O'Neil was robbed of a victory, wasn't he? Yeah, I guess he was. But, like I said, when you're dealing with the unholy trinity, Dirty Dutch Mantell, Big Bob Duncum, and Primetime Bobby Mills, this kind of stuff can't be avoided. Well, then I suppose the only thing we can hope for is for people like MJ Ferrantino to make sure that these people get their comeuppance. That sounds fair. That sounds very fair. Alright, well there you go, Big Bob Duncum with a pinfall win over Titus O'Neil. We'll be back with more Legends Showdown right after this.